Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss a few things surrounding Suella Braverman's speech at the Tory conference yesterday, including the ejected Conservative politician, which shows how the party may be, have a much less pleasant future than some Conservatives are hoping for or even expecting. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So before I get to the dystopian fireworks show that was Braverman's speech and the reaction to it, I'd first of all like to discuss closing remarks that Michael Heseltine, the former party deputy, made at a fringe event. He said that moderate Conservatives would take back control of their party in the future. Now, I'm not going to put it as strongly as saying I think he's wrong. What I'm going to say is I don't think he has any rational basis for this belief. And if it wasn't clear beforehand, Suella Braverman's speech was a really worrying omen if you're a moderate Conservative. I think for the rest of us as well, if we really think forwards. So let me discuss a few features of, the speech, not so much what she said in it as the what surrounds it. So the first thing is, up until yesterday afternoon, cabinet minister speeches were poorly attended in the main hall. I wasn't there, but we saw footage, we saw photos of largely empty chairs when cabinet ministers, the most senior members of government, were speaking. Fringe events, led by people calling for a massive lurch to the extremes, either economically or socially, or both, were packed out. Liz Truss and Nigel Farage are the darlings of this conference. These are the people that delegates, the most active Conservative members, wanted to listen to. Cabinet ministers, actual policymakers in their party, no. They were just getting a handful turn up. Braverman's speech, however, was packed out. And that was the hall. That was the main hall. Without that spectacle, you might imagine that the lurch to the right is an issue mostly within the Conservative parliamentary party. That a severe loss of seats might get the party to focus a bit more on the quality of their future candidates as they rebuild. And that, as Heseltine suggests, the moderates regain control again. But this was party members wanting to listen to Braverman's emotive word salad. And word salad is exactly what it was. It was like a Donald Trump speech. You know how sometimes you listen to it and think, what? And then you'll look at a transcript and you'll go, what on earth is this? It's not just that Braverman was expressing things I strongly disagree with. It's that if you just concentrate on the words she was using, they don't make sense. It's like one of my favourite poems, The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Absolute nonsense. Hardly any real words in the entire piece. Yet, you can imagine yourself there. You can picture it. You know what's going on. This is what Braverman's speech was like. It was a lot of emotive terms designed to trigger an emotional response, not an intellectual response, because the words made no sense. It's like music in a film. You're listening to the dialogue, that's occupying your mind, but the music is controlling your emotions. At one point, a gentleman in the audience, an elected Conservative politician, took umbrage at one example of this word salad by saying there's no such thing as gender ideology. He's been described in the media as a heckler. He wasn't heckling. Heckling is loud. Heckling is there to disrupt things. Heckling is heard by everyone, including the speaker. People there who were a few rows away from him were reporting that they couldn't even hear him. Those immediately around him said he said it quite softly. Now, we don't need to take their word for it. We have clips. Now, it wasn't exactly muttering, but nor was it heckling. He was then ejected, not just from the conference hall, but the entire venue, the building. Now, I'm going to offer a slightly different take on this to what you may have seen and say I have no opinion on his removal as such, because for all I know, the terms and conditions stipulate that any calling out is grounds for removal. There's no sort of decibel level required. I mean, you can get kicked out of a theatre performance for doing that. And this is a private event after all. I pass no comment on the fact he was removed. I will, however, ask why a police officer was involved in his removal. Now, the man may or may not have breached the terms of his conference pass. I don't know. I haven't read them. I can't be asked to read them. but he was definitely not breaking the law, nor was he threatening to break the law. There was absolutely no cause for a police officer to be involved. And then it got worse. So he was removed, as I say, not just from the conference hall, but the entire building. At that point, it wasn't right, you're not coming back in now. No, he was still being manhandled. He was stopping trying to use his phone, whether to text someone or type on Twitter, I don't know. But he wasn't being a bother. He was outside. He wasn't trying to get back in. He certainly wasn't trying to force his way back in. You know, what he did in the conference hall was not illegal. But I do wonder if physically manhandling him, pushing him along, forcing him by the arms outside the building when he wasn't trying to get back in or being in any way violent, I wonder if that is an offence. And the police officer was still there, taking part in this spectacle. That's where my disdain is focused. Not on the ejection, I have no opinion on that, on the role of the police in this, who've also been suppressing protests outside the venue with very unconvincing pretexts that even the Mayor of Manchester didn't seem to be able to defend. But this episode also exposed another aspect of Tory hypocrisy. So their chief acolytes talk about free speech all the time, don't they? Oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Now, I think freedom comes with responsibility. But the most influential voice in the Conservative Party never saying that. If this man had said his piece and he wasn't removed, do you know what? I don't think I'd have even heard about it. I may have seen a comment in a tweet that someone in the audience took exception to what Braverman had said. Oh yeah, him and half the country. It wouldn't have been newsworthy. Well, now it is, because they've amplified the entire thing. There's a potential Streisand effect to this. A gay Conservative politician was physically forced out of the Tory conference for quietly taking issue with a nonsense homophobic comment made by the Tory Home Secretary. You have to wonder how that is going to be seen by some voters. You know, voters who might have considered voting Conservative. How's it going to make them feel? Before this event, the main exclusion story was of some gay Tories being ejected from a bar. Now, they were kicked out for being Tories, not being gay, but you know that hardly matters. It wasn't necessarily fair what happened to them. But here we have the Tories kicking a Tory out. Now, I've already said, the party is now at war with itself. Struggling to work out how to blame the EU for their failures, they've also run out of marginalised groups. They've turned on themselves. They're attacking 20-mile-an-hour zones, but Conservative councils, including Rishi Sunak's Conservative Council, approve of them and are allocating more of them. And the reason they're doing this is because their voters want it. And now they kick out an actual Tory, amplifying the entire episode with their approach. You know, this is like reason number 87 why the Tories will lose the general election. Their divide and rule tactics, they're not being used on the voting population as usual. They're now using it on their own party. This is not about winning power in government. They've abandoned all hope of that. This is about winning power in the party. This is about being in place to take over after the election. After the election, Rishi Sunak will announce his resignation. There will be an immediate leadership contest. It'll all happen quite quickly. So what's happening is manoeuvres are starting now for that. Heseltine said the moderates will regain control. Now, I'm guessing he says that because he's thinking, well, logically, a functional Labour government is not going to lose to this extremist nonsense from the likes of Braverman. But I think he may be making a few mistakes. First, the UKIPification of the Tory party was very evident in 2015. It's gotten much worse, but it was evident then. The only time moderates have made any attempt since then to wrest control back was in 2019, in the summer, when some of them asked opposition leaders to form a government of national unity against Boris Johnson. Sadly, Labour refused. But what was also sad was that it was just over 20 Tory MPs that stuck their heads above the parapet. This was it. This was the battle for their party. Just over 20, that was it. Or was it just under? It was about 20. It certainly wasn't like 100. Since then, they haven't so much as been laying low as almost completely absent, like literally absent. Their leaders were kicked out of the parliamentary party. There's nothing left to rebuild with now. Who are they going to coalesce around if there's even enough of them there? Second, unlike the other senior government speeches, Braverman's speech was very well attended and loudly applauded. This is not a problem with the parliamentary party. This is a problem with the wider party. After the election, many Tory MPs will lose their seats. Some of the more extreme ones will be amongst that number. Some, like Braverman, are in safe seats. But it almost doesn't matter what shape the parliamentary party is in after the election. I can believe that the moderates will be a majority again. I don't know. What I do know is we can see what party members think. We can see that they want to listen to Liz Truss with her economic insanity. They want to listen to Braverman with her social insanity. And those members are still members after the election. And those members have been selecting their candidates for this next election. And they will continue to select candidates for following elections. They're still going to choose the leader that replaces Sunak. And third, let us say after a decade or more out of power, which isn't certain, but certainly on the cards, the Conservatives get tired of losing and want to be pragmatic. So they'll back a moderate-looking leadership that seems to be in tune with the public in order to appeal to voters. I can absolutely believe that. Does that represent the moderates taking back control of the party? No. Because what I don't believe is that the extremists will have been beaten. They will simply recognise that they are not appealing to the public. If Labour do not implement PR, and I'll be pushing very hard for them to do so, then when the Tories return, they will have a new look front bench, but these attitudes will still be there because the party members have them. And when David Cameron became Prime Minister, it took only a few years for the extremists to dictate the agenda. That's because of the influx of UKIP members. It was made easier, of course, with Labour in a flap. What's to stop the same thing happening next time, only much quicker? It won't take time to infiltrate the Conservative Party next time because it's already happened. They're already there. As long as they don't leave, they are already there. And as long as those extremists remain within the party, they know it's only a matter of time. They will attempt to take power with their champions already leading. They stand a better chance of achieving this than the extreme left because the far right have the media on their side and they've already shifted what is publicly acceptable to say and believe quite far towards them. But if that fails, and there's a good chance it fails, they can just melt into the background, let someone credible take over, win power, watch Labour melt down into recriminations for 10 years, and just take over from their concealed positions. The bottom line is this: the Conservative Party is not a largely moderate group of low-tax, small-state Conservatives who, for various reasons, have ended up with extremists running the party. They showed where they stand in packing out Braverman's speech when those of her cabinet colleagues were mostly poorly attended. It showed that they have no interest in listening to their party's policies. Otherwise, they'd have gone to listen to, say, the Transport Secretary when HS2 is a big story. No. What they're interested in is the future, not the present. They listened to Braverman because she was painting a picture of a dystopian future which they approve of. That's where the party is now. Not just the MPs. That's where the party is. How on earth do moderates come back from that? Again, I don't say Heseltine is definitely wrong. I just say that the facts do not seem to support his belief. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.